what the Epistle of James is, and I argue very strongly, actually, in the introduction, that this is the work of James of Jerusalem, probably written between 58 and 62. It's probably addressed, and here I was following Martin Hengel, a great New Testament scholar, that basically, and I think he was 100% right, that what has happened in the churches, and he's, like I say, it's an encyclical letter. He's writing it to a number of churches. If he's not writing it to all Christians, although there's an indication in the letter that this, in fact, it's the only letter in the New Testament which is said to be written to all Christians. But if he's not referring to all Christians, he's certainly writing to the churches of Paul. That's almost a guaranteed given thing. Paul is arrested in 58. James is martyred in 62. And it's in that window of 4 years, roughly, that this epistle probably is written. Now, that's my feeling. I'm sure there's lots of scholars who would disagree with that. But I follow Hengel on this because I think there's too many indicators in the epistle itself that James is concerned with a distorted version of Paul. All right. We see this in chapter 2, which is why the emphasis, faith without works is dead. Mm-hmm. Works being, if you will, the life-giving thing to faith. Faith is what you see, it's not this what you think, it's what you see. And what you see is what you do. And so faith without works is dead. So who is he writing to? Well, he's writing to the whole community, and he's very specifically writing to leaders who are probably following not only what they think is Paul's gospel, all right, which is very similar sometimes to the way gospel gets heard today. It's mm-hmm. just believe, when you wish upon a star, that kind of thing. Just believe and everything, grace takes care of everything. James is saying, well, it's not that simple, folks. When you signed on to Jesus, when you were baptized, you were called to live the life, assuming you didn't die on a cross next to him, like the thief, in Luke. You signed on actually to do these. I make this very point in the commentary that at some point James and Paul are talking at cross purposes, mm-hmm. and this has to do with the distortion of Paul's gospel. Paul himself is shall we sin so that grace may abound? Me genoita. He's absolutely opposed to that, and so is James. They're much closer than maybe even James realized at that point, because he's got to think now. He's getting back reports mm-hmm. of what's being said while Paul's back in prison, or even has been executed. All right. Actually, he's not executed to 64, I think it is. So James is dead even before Paul. But he's getting reports probably from these churches of what's being said. And those are distortions of Paul's theology. But the problem is, it's not so much that Paul doesn't say the law is good. Paul says the law is good. The law is holy. He also says some things about the law that is a different emphasis than what James would have. All right. James calls it the law of liberty. In other words, for him, and I think also for Jesus, this is where I think that Paul, by overstressing a conflict between the law and the gospel, he's doing it for effect in some ways, but James is calling him on this. James comes back, and the whole message of Jesus was as the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus' teachings in chapter 5. You've heard it said, but I say to you, what Jesus is getting at is, let's put the ceremonial things to the side. The heart and soul of the gospel, or of the law, is what my gospel is all about. which is basically love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. And this is what James is coming back to. And
so are you endangering yourself among all the Lutherans that live around you in Norway? Like, are they going to come after you now?
Yeah, they're burning things on my lawn, I think. No, actually, you'd be surprised how many Lutherans I know agree with me. The thing is not to oppose Paul and James, it's to read them together as complementary.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is why they're both in the canon. It's a shame all we have is one epistle of James,